Well, Uber has been dealing with a list of scandals and controversies recently, and in a new book titled Wild Ride Inside Uber's Quest for World Domination, author Adam Lashinsky takes a closer look inside the ride-sharing company.
The Fortune magazine editor also offers a rare glimpse into the life of Uber CEO Travis Kalanick, and Adam Lashinsky joins us now. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's a fascinating book, and I want to ask you, why did you decide to write it? Why did you decide to focus on Kalanick and Uber?
Well, I started about 2 years ago. My previous book was on Apple, so I already have a history looking at very big, very important companies. And already Uber was global and successful and on the mind of everybody, had disrupted an industry, created a new way of going places. And lastly, had a charismatic CEO who I knew would be a good story. And I just want to repeat, that was 2 years ago, before everything that we've seen since then.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast on Uber, and they said that Uber is the embodiment of Kalanick. It is him as a business. You rode around with him.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would completely agree with it. So it's interesting. He didn't start the company. It wasn't his idea. Most people think that it was. It was the idea of a guy named Garrett Camp who founded StumbleUpon and was a friend of his. But he came into it about a year in, and from that moment made it his own. And nobody would dispute that. There's no controversy about that.
Yeah.
Travis Kalanick made Uber, and Uber is very much like him.
What was it like riding around with him?
Well, it was actually a lot of fun. He's a curious, quirky, challenging guy. He loves to argue. He'll argue about anything. And so, he'll argue about important things, and he'll argue about completely meaningless
Even
things.
with his own driver, as we saw in that infamous video.
That was a different kind of argument than the types of arguments that I had with him. It's funny, when I was with him, we took a long walk in San Francisco, which is the last chapter of my book. At the end of the walk, we got in an Uber, and we went back to the Uber offices. The driver recognizes that he has the CEO of Uber in the back seat and starts giving him grief. Now, when I'm sitting in the car with him, he answered the driver very politely and said, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, let me get back to you on that." And he did. It was nothing like that video that we all saw where he lost his cool.
So you say Uber is like him. So tell me what the strengths are for him and the company, and then what are the liabilities when the company embodies you?
Right. So
and you're not perfect.
Right. Well, and none of us is, right? But him in particular. Yeah. So the strengths are, but they created something where nothing existed before. They changed everything, and so it's sort of cliche. They were rule breakers, but they were rule breakers. They went into all these cities, New York included, and said, "We're not taxis, and you've never seen a company like this before that works on a smartphone app and so on, and your regulations don't work for us. So we're just going to do it our way."
Right.
And then let's talk about it afterwards. They did this all over the country and all over the world. They made a lot of enemies, but they also made a lot of friends and built a very big business. That was the strength, and that was Travis Kalanick, entrepreneur, going to do it my way.
Right.
The weaknesses are the exact same thing. When you break that many rules, when you offend so many people, people are going to be out to get you.
Right.
You haven't built up a lot of goodwill.
So are you not surprised then by some of the recent bad publicity that we've been seeing? Is this inevitable when you have this sort of personality?
Yeah, absolutely, and it sort of goes from bad to worse because they were valued at $69 billion, because they became a verb, because they were on everybody's mind. They get it for the things that they absolutely should be getting it for, and for everything else too.
So what about what we're putting up on the screen right now? The alleged assaults, the sexual assaults and harassment, kidnappings, felons driving behind the wheel, in addition to some of the quirkier aspects of his personality, including going to sort of a gentleman's strip bar in Korea. I mean, what does that all say about how the company is managed?
Well, there's a lot there, and some of it is that it's managed. It's been managed loosely, and so we see that just today with this bit of news that they didn't collect they didn't collect the fees correctly for their drivers in New York, and they owe them a bunch of money. I mean, a company that prides itself on being math oriented didn't do the math right. That points to sort of loose management. As far as the other stuff goes, that's kind of what I was getting to a moment ago. I mean, I promise you they're not the only executives who went to strip clubs in Seoul or some other place. But But we're looking at them, and justifiably so. They've courted the controversy and they've courted the attention, so now they're going to have to deal with it.
And I wonder if there's an opportunity, though. Don't you think that with all that's been in the news about Uber, why haven't other ride-sharing companies been able to capitalize on their market share? I just can't imagine. I'm sure they're sitting over at Lyft saying, we should be able to, you know, grab a bigger chunk, and we're not.
Yeah, so the short answer is, in some cases they have, and so Lyft has done well in certain markets, but it really comes down to money. Uber has a lot of it. They still have about $5 billion in the bank or access to it, and so they can spend money in whatever market they want to in order to preserve that market share. Spend it by subsidizing the rides, paying the drivers, making it cheaper for us. And that works with most consumers. Most consumers say, I want the fastest, cheapest ride. Thank you very much. Yeah, I heard something about them being bad, but can you get me? Can you get me to my meeting?
So recently, we've heard from Kalanick after every one of these incidents, and he said, "Yes, I know. I've sort of failed as a leader. I've got to get better at this." And and they hired a new CEO, I believe.
No, they're looking for a new COO.
COO to sort of manage and perhaps be more adult.
Correct.
You hung out with him though. Yeah. Is this the kind of guy? Like, do you think that's sincere? Because once again, all this behavior has led to huge rewards for him, really. Yeah. So would he change?
Well, I'm going to give you both answers. The short answer that I know you're looking for is no, he's incapable of it, and there's that may well be true. The other answer to at least think about is this guy is very motivated by winning, and he's a pragmatist. So his reputation is he never quits, but they quit in China. They quit in China because the writing was on the wall. They had to quit in China. If he's persuaded that getting some outstanding chief operating officer, a deputy, is the key to Uber's success, if he really believes that, and I don't know. I don't know if he does, but if he does, he'll do it because it's the pragmatic thing to do to win. Is he capable? I honestly don't know.
Right.
Well, it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. You see him bouncing back. I mean, knowing what you know about him, having spent some time with him, does he himself bounce back from this, and does Uber continue to dominate the way it has?
So I think it's going to take a lot for him to step down as CEO. I mean, it's going to take something horrible, something criminal or something devastating. So I think that's my take on that. And I'm sort of an optimist that there's a good big business there. They built a global business. Yes, they have a lot of problems, but they have a lot of loyal customers. And outside of certain places in New York and San Francisco where it's very popular to hate them, a lot of people like it, like riding in Ubers a lot. So I think they can make it, but they have a lot of obstacles.
Adam, before we let you go, though, for this book, you actually worked as an Uber driver.
Yes.
And?
Well, I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I thought it would be exciting. I thought it would be interesting talking to people in the back seat. Here's what I learned. It's tedious. I don't like getting stuck in traffic. There's a lot of wear and tear on you and your car. And just as I do with my drivers, people ignored me. They weren't so interested in talking to me. They had their emails or their own telephone calls or their own conversations. It made me very happy to do what I do for
I've actually had some Uber drivers that have been really interesting in that. Like, you get into the car and they've got like gum and candy and water and soda, and they have one guy had a little tray, and I just sat there and he's like, help yourself, and I was like, this is really cool.
And so I'll tell you, it's part of the Uber playbook. When you sign up as a driver, you watch a little 90-second video, and one of the tips is you might want to have water for your customers. So I went out and bought a case of water. Nobody took my water.
Adam Lashinsky, it's a really fascinating book. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.